Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to Rockhaven Homestead, and I finally got some time to sit down and do a recording of a follow-up to the cost of everything. It's the value of everything. I told someone on Facebook that if I got around to it and had the time, and if I had the interest, that I would do one to follow this up, because we looked at the cost of everything last time. Last time we looked at how you had very convenient transactions, inconvenient transactions, and very inconvenient transactions. Now there is a middle ground there, but very few things actually fall into the middle ground unless you seek them out. So we didn't have that one necessarily. If I ever come back to this and start and do like a comprehensive idea of breaking things down, maybe someday we'll do that, but that's definitely in the future, not right now. Right now, we are talking about not the cost of everything, but the value of everything. We talked about how you can invest into things, either wealth, effort, and time. Everything costs those three things. Now, these very convenient things usually cost more money, a lot more stuff and physical possessions. They take a lot more of those things. Now, effort is one of those underestimated exchangeable things for stuffs. And then time is what we talked about as being the most valuable of either one of these. Wealth and stuff is constantly being spent and gained, so there's nothing that's constantly flowing. Effort is something you get renewed every day from rest and allowing yourself to recover and things like that. You recover your effort that you've spent. But time is an irreplaceable resource of limited quantity, possessed by all in limited amounts. It is irreplaceable. And we talked about how, just recapping, the things that happen on the homestead are usually these inconvenient or very inconvenient transactions where you're investing a lot of time and a lot of effort and then some money. But most of the time, if you're doing things on the homestead can cost any of these, but if you're doing things yourself on the homestead, they usually are either inconvenient or very inconvenient transactions, because you're investing that time and effort. It's about you investing that, you having that. What we're talking about when we're understanding that is we want to understand what we're getting for that exchange. What are we paying? What is the cost? And what are we getting? What is this everything that we're getting? When we start to break down the value of everything, we look at a very convenient transaction. You spend a lot of money and you save a lot of effort and you save a lot of time. The problem comes in is, like we mentioned before, this wealth that you've invested, this stuff that you've given, has saved you effort and time. But what have you gained from that? Most of the time, you've not gained very much in the relative scheme of things. Let's say that you are very rich, and keeping this to not include huge major purchases off of a homestead that won't have any effect on a homestead. Let's keep it to something that does affect the homestead, something really big. We talked about how this is basically hiring someone to do something for you. This is you paying them to spend their effort and their time, and you're giving them that wealth in exchange. We would consider this, say, instead of installing your own solar or installing something, your own power source, we'll say. It doesn't have to be solar. You want a power source for your house, your off-grid homestead, or in our case, what we're working for, a self-sufficient homestead. Well, you're going to pay somebody to come in and do that. That's what you're going to do. That's what your plan is. Well, you're going to spend a lot of money and not a whole lot of effort and time if they're doing all the setup. But what also happens is you don't gain that understanding either. You don't gain that experience, that knowledge. For those of you that have been on the channel for a little while, you know that I like games and video games or tabletop games, either one. I like just card games too, but I like those things, especially RPGs. And one of the things you gain in RPGs to most of the time is experience or XP. This is going to, for those using game logic, this is going to the shop and buying that new fancy sword. This is going to the shop and buying the materials for the new fancy sword. This is going out and finding, looting the materials from your enemies for your big fancy sword. And this is going out and mining and getting your own ore and getting your own enchanting materials and getting your own things like that. To use specifically something along with Skyrim. That's this. Very inconvenient. It's very inconvenient to go and get your own ore and go get your own things and make your own sword. In the same sense, coming back to the homestead and solar or any kind of power source, if you go and you get here, you're paying someone else and you're not getting any experience for it. If you're in the homestead and you go and you purchase some of the things that you need, well, this convenient transaction may yield you some experience. You may get some experience for that. You may get some knowledge and understanding and growth from that. Your knowledge, your wisdom, and your understanding may grow. Some. But it's right here and here where you may spend the most effort and time, but you often will get the best amount of experience and knowledge and understanding and wisdom. The knowledge, wisdom, and understanding come here and here, far more than here and here. If you want to have the most understanding about all the things that go into your homestead, if you want to know your homestead inside and out, then you are going to spend that effort and that time to make it your homestead. That's not to say you don't, especially with things you don't understand, that you don't go to people and perhaps have to do a convenient or very inconvenient or very convenient exchange and costs. But that doesn't mean you have to stop there. You may buy the thing you need. You may spend that money to buy the thing you need and then install that yourself and spend extra time doing that so that when something goes wrong in your homestead, which, things happen, stuff happens. When things go wrong, because they inevitably do change or go wrong, or the living situation may shift. When that happens, you have the full understanding of what you've got on that homestead. You may have less, but you understand it all. And it goes into that idea of this is your homestead. I'm very much a proponent of the idea of personal responsibility, and if you want something, then it's your responsibility to get it. No one should have to provide it for you. That I really wish, because not even in America does it work this way, I really wish that you could just go and start on a plot of land and say, I'm going to turn this into something. Now, we can't do that all the time. We're stuck having to deal with governments and the way that they like to work out their taxation and different stuff like that. So we have to have some monies, or else they'll take our stuff. But to a certain extent, you can still, as long as you have personal property rights, you can still go and get something that you want, that you not even necessarily want, but feel a deep desire for. Want is not necessarily the correct word. The things you desire, you can go after them and get them. if you're willing to do those inconvenient or very inconvenient transactions. And you will understand everything that happens in that. Everything that happens in that homestead, you will understand because you put it there. You earned it. You set it there. And of course, this is all with the understanding that it is God that blesses. So that is the full understanding of this. That is my opinion, and I will hold that. All of this eventually is His, but what has He trusted you with, and what can He trust you with? You see, the people that do these inconvenient and very inconvenient transactions can often be trusted with much more. And even the world starts to understand that. Who are the hardest workers are usually those willing to do those inconvenient and very inconvenient transactions, willing to spend the effort and time and save the money. Now, when talking about the value of everything, not just its cost, but its value, it's important that we talk about not just the experience that you're getting out of it, which is what you're getting, but what is it doing for those around you? Because you guys have seen it, and I've been cutting back and forth here from what I've been saying and what you guys have been seeing on the screen. You've been seeing clips of just me and my 2 children doing stuff on the homestead, or gathering nuts at Mama and Papa's. Those were pecans they were gathering, and things like that. Those moments are irreplaceable. I homeschool my kids not just because I find that it's better for their understanding, for their actual learning and understanding, actually becoming wise, intelligent people, but also because those are moments that I'm not going to get to replace. Those are moments in time that the children will be able to look back on. And kids, if you ever watch this or you ever share it with your children, those are times that you'll be able to have and show them, and you'll be able to show yourself and remember. Those are important moments. Those are irreplaceable. And you don't get those things if you're not willing to do those inconvenient and very inconvenient transactions. If you don't do that, if you're not willing to put in the effort, you don't deserve it. You don't get those. You don't deserve to get those things, and that's recognized. You don't deserve to have the things you're not willing to work for. And I'm not advocating for taking things from lazy people. That's not what I'm saying. But lazy people won't keep their things. That's what I'm saying. It leads to want. You can go to Proverbs, or lots of places in Scripture talk about that. And coming back to the idea of what the value of everything is, if you really value something, if you count it important, you will be willing to do the very inconvenient things to keep it, to have it, to hold it. And for me, that means that my children are with me as much as they can be before they start out on their journey in life that is not going to involve me as much. I know that, you have your kids and they're with you for about 18-ish years, sometimes 20-ish or something like that, depending on what they're doing and where they're going. Sometimes they stay close, but you can't count on that. And Addie, Illy, if you're watching, you can't count on your kids to stick around forever. Sometimes they got things they want to do, goals that they have. And those goals are good for them and healthy a lot of the times. So the value that you have with them is early. Share time and experiences with them. See, these experiences that you're getting, we're using homesteads now, of course, as our example. That's what this channel's main focus is, but anything. If you're willing to do those inconvenient and very inconvenient transactions, and they are involved in that, they are part of that, then that value is passed on to children as well. They see and experience those things, and they, to use some more game terms, they level up as well. I mean, it's fun to think. I like thinking in game terms sometimes because it helps wrap around the ideas of progression. Because those are, in games, those are really set in certain rules. You do certain things to progress. Well, in life, it's not so clear cut. What do you do to progress? Do you go to college? Do you travel the world? Do you do this or that? Well, that kind of depends. Because when you go and you break it down, these transactions that we're doing, and whether we're spending wealth, effort, or time, and the cost that we're putting into it, the cost of everything is pretty easy to calculate, but the value won't be. I'm not the biggest fan of Ralph Waldo Emerson's ideas on a lot of things. I've listened to the audiobook of his writing of Walden Pond, or just Walden, and he says a lot of things there that I disagree with. But one of the things I agree with is, to paraphrase, he says that the cost of... Let me not paraphrase. Let me go get it. There it is. I apologize. It wasn't Ralph Waldo Emerson. I thought of him because he was a friend of the person that actually said it, and it was Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau said in Walden, "The cost of a thing is the amount of what I call life which is required to be exchanged for it, immediately or in the long run." That really helps sum up what I'm talking about here. How much life are you willing to spend for something? And for everybody, that's going to be different. For some people, it is traveling the world that will give them the most value for their cost of everything, for the value of their life. But that's not where I find my most satisfaction. I find it with my children on my homestead. The life spent with them is irreplaceable. The value of it, the value of sharing, just brushing your teeth under the stars, or watching them ride on their bikes around the house while I'm doing other things, or having them help me put together what we're just different projects that we're doing. Having that time, they may not see it right now. Addie, Illy, if you're looking back on this, you didn't always enjoy helping me on the ranch and farms and homesteads do things. But if you're honest and you look back, you wouldn't trade it for anything, because it was time well spent, because it was time spent together. I guess that's what it boils down to. Is your life been well spent? Not based upon what other people think, but based upon what, most importantly, God would say, and also what you yourself find valuable in your life. Have you spent that life valuably? Have you treated life valuably? And that is where we come with the value of everything. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you were all right with me not doodling and drawing, because value is something that's a lot more subjective than what we talked about with the cost of everything. Cost is very definable. Value is not necessarily very definable. So hopefully you enjoyed, and as always, have a great day. God bless, and enjoy. Bye.